demonstration. I'm really thrilled to have everyone here today. My name is Mark Singh, and I work with the City of Toronto's Environment and Energy Division. We are the hosts of this lovely event as part of the Live Green at Work webinar workshop series. This is our 6th episode of Live Green at Work. We're thrilled to have you here, and we're thrilled to have our guests here this evening for what's undoubtedly going to be a very delicious event. I would like to start by acknowledging that the land that we are meeting on is the traditional territory of many nations, including the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Anishinaabe, the Chippewa, the Haudenosaunee, and the Wendat peoples, and is now home to many diverse First Nations, Inuit, and Métis peoples. We acknowledge that Toronto is covered by Treaty 13 with the Mississaugas of the Credit. Just a little bit of housekeeping before we get started. As this is for those who are interested, this workshop will be recorded, so that you do miss anything, you're able to go back to the recording for reference. Those who are registered for the event will actually get a link to the recording tomorrow, but it will be posted on the Live Green Toronto's YouTube page. So keep an eye out for that. We are, just because this is a cooking demonstration, you'll want to be able to really maximize a couple of the screens that show the cooking part of this event. So you'll see two angles of our wonderful chef, Chef Aaron, who's going to be doing the demo today. And I'm just going to share my screen to show you, Jess, I don't have the power just yet to share my screen. But I'm going to show you how you can do that with WebEx, which is not generally designed to do this kind of cooking demonstration, but we've figured it out. So I'm just going to show you here. It was sent out in an email prior to this event. So if you have that email, you can take a look at the information yourself. But in the upper, assuming you were logging in on your on a laptop or a PC, in the upper left corner, upper right corner of the window, you'll see a button called Layout. If you click on that and click the word Stack, then you're going to get a view that looks something like this in the upper left corner of my screen right now. And then you can just click and drag. So the two screens you'll really want to maximize are the two screens where you can see Chef Aaron right now. And that will give you the best viewing option for the event tonight. So I'm going to undo this share.
You're on mute, Mark.
Let me just, sorry?
We can hear you now.
Okay, great. I'm going to throw it over to Erika in just a quick second, but before I do, I want to mention that if anybody does actually have questions, feel free to look for the Q&A box in the WebEx interface. That's where you can enter questions. Feel free to throw in your questions at any point in time during the demonstration. We'll take some during the demonstration, but we will also leave some time for questions at the end. So I'm very pleased to introduce you to Erika Bolliger with Oceanwise Seafood. Erika joined Oceanwise in 2019, and she manages relationships with Oceanwise Seafood partners across Eastern Canada, supporting their efforts on sustainable sourcing. She's been responsible for coordinating Toronto's first ever sustainable seafood walking tour, which sounds awesome. Erika, I didn't know about this, and I would like to please have you do that again. And is the creator and editor of the interactive digital cookbook, Cooking for Conservation, Restorative Seafood Recipes Designed to Support Healthy Oceans. Erika graduated from the University of Toronto with an honors Bachelor of Science, majoring in Biodiversity and Conservation Biology. She's an accomplished public speaker and puts her skills and energy into connecting with others in simple ways they can incorporate sustainability into their lifestyle while accumulating positive pressure for large-scale, lasting change for our planet. I'll pass it over to Erika, and I will see you all again at the end of the demonstration. Enjoy.
Thank you so much, Mark, and thank you for having me and for hosting this fantastic event. And thank you to everyone who is taking the time out of your week to learn and cook with us this evening. As Mark mentioned, I'm Erika, the accounts coordinator for the Oceanwise Seafood Program, a partnership-based not-for-profit that's working with all kinds of businesses to support sustainable seafood sourcing throughout the supply chain, as well as providing outreach, education, and opportunities to connect with each other about the importance of choosing sustainable seafood. Overfishing, bycatch, and habitat damage are threatening our oceans, lakes, and rivers around the world. And although these are monumental global issues, there are accessible local solutions that will address these challenges. One of which is choosing Oceanwise recommended sustainable seafood. Sustainable seafood can be defined as species that are caught or farmed in a way that ensures the long-term health and stability of that species, as well as the greater aquatic ecosystem. During June and July, Oceanwise Seafood is hosting an educational campaign called Waves of Change, all about the drivers and solutions to overfishing and what you can do to help. The campaign is broken into themes, and this week is all about wild-caught seafood, which actually seems to divide people into two camps. Those that think wild is always better than farmed, and those that think wild cannot be sustainable at all. In fact, neither of those are completely true. There are both sustainable and unsustainable ways of fishing and farming seafood, and it all depends on where it's from, how it's harvested, whether the population is healthy and resilient, if there are effective management plans in place, and if there are any impacts on habitats or other species. While that may seem confusing, that's why Oceanwise exists. We do all that research for you to make choosing sustainable seafood simple and based on the best available science. Just look for the Oceanwise logo or look for Oceanwise recommended seafood products. For this event, we chose to highlight a local wild-caught lake fish from Ontario known as pickerel or walleye to show an example of sustainable wild fishing right in our backyard. Pickerel are resilient to fishing pressure and tolerant of a pretty wide variety of environmental conditions. Populations across the Great Lakes are abundant or recovering well from past environmental damage, thanks to strict fishing quotas and effective management. Fishing practices and gear types have little impact on the health of the Great Lakes ecosystem, and rigorous scientific studies are completed to ensure ecosystem-based fisheries management practices are informed by strong scientific data. Generally, there's few concerns about bycatch, which is catching species other than pickerel, thanks to selective size and placement of the harvest gear. Pickerel caught by gill nets or traps in Lake Ontario, Lake Erie, and Lake Huron are all Oceanwise recommended. And if you're looking for more sourcing recommendations, you can check our seafood search engine. So even if you don't live on the coasts, you still have access to fantastic local sustainable seafood that supports Ontario fishers and farmers. And really, I could talk about sustainability all day, but here to show you how to put it into practice in a delicious way is Executive Chef Erin Linley of Pure Spirits Oyster House and Grill in the Distillery District right here in Toronto. We're grateful to have Chef Erin with us today. He's an accomplished chef, graduating from and later instructing at the renowned Stratford Chef School in his hometown of Stratford, Ontario. Chef Erin has worked at distinguished establishments such as Rundle's in Stratford, Scaramouche in Toronto, and Olive Toe in California, and has worked alongside famous chefs such as Chef Paul Bertoli of Chez Panay, Chef Michael Smith, of the host of Chopped Canada. In 2001, Chef Erin and his wife, Bronwyn, who's our videographer today, thank you so much for joining us, who he met in chef school, opened a greatly successful restaurant, Bijou, in Stratford, with an emphasis on local farm-to-table ingredients. They sold it in 2015 and created a similar achievement with their food at the Bruce Hotel. When Chef Erin and Bronwyn were ready for their next adventure, they moved to Toronto, where Chef Erin found a natural fit as executive chef for the Distillery District's Pure Spirits Oyster House and Grill. Pure Spirits has been an Oceanwise seafood partner since 2013 and has been actively engaged in the sustainable seafood movement, with chefs competing in numerous Oceanwise Chowder Chowdown fundraisers, which Distillery Restaurant Group also sponsors and generously donates event space to. They've also hosted Top Shuck and Ceviche Smackdown events, all in order to lead advocacy and education about the importance of choosing sustainable seafood. As a talented culinary expert, a lover of seafood with true local sourcing values, Chef Erin is the perfect person to demonstrate this fantastic Ontario pickerel recipe and has invited us into his home kitchen. I'll be fielding questions throughout the demo, but with that said, I'd love to hand it over to Chef.
Thanks, Erika. That was a lovely introduction. Okay, so today we're going to be cooking pickerel out of Lake Erie. What is pickerel? I'll show you. Okay, so this is a pickerel. Can you come in closer, Brian? Okay, so these guys live in sort of shallow waters. They're amazing little predators and hunters. When you open up their mouths, you can see they've got a whole row of very sharp teeth. They also, which is really fascinating about pickerel, is they're the only fish that you can use that you can't tell freshness by the eyes. The eyes of a pickerel are always cloudy, and it has to do with the way that they hunt. They hang out in the lower depths of the water and they refract light, and they wait for things to come swimming by when they kind of come out and grab it. So the flesh of the pickerel that we like, it's a popular sport fish, but the flesh we like is it's very white, it's dense, it has like a natural sweetness to it, and it lends itself to all sorts of really interesting cooking techniques because the flesh has a bit of resilience and structure so it doesn't fall apart when you cook it. So if you go to a fish market and you ask for a whole pickerel, you'll get something like this. It's essentially sort of partially dressed, which means that the fins have been removed, the belly has been emptied, some of the gills have been taken out. And because I said that you can't tell that from the eyes if the fish is fresh, what you want to really look for in this fish is to make sure that the blood, when you look into the belly, is a bright red color, so that it tells us that the fish isn't old and it hasn't oxidized. And then the fish itself, when you hold it, should feel very firm because the fish is pure muscle swimming through the lakes. So that's our pickerel, but we're going to work with fillets today. Quick hand wash.
This is great, Chef. I didn't think you'd be bringing a whole pickerel to the demo. So we're getting the full look.
When you go into your fishmonger, and there's a couple of great ones here in Toronto that you may be familiar with. Hooked has several locations around the city. Another great one is Diana's here in Scarborough, which have a great selection of seafood, and they also have an incredible staff that'll do some of the filleting for you as well. Typically, when you get the fillets, they'll come like this. So the skin is on, they have been scaled. And if you turn them over, you can see that there is a small incision cut here. Okay, so there's a row of bones that exist from about halfway down the fish up through to the head. If you think about the way a fish swims through the water, it kind of fliggers its tail, but the body stays straight and aerodynamic as it goes through the water. So these bones keep the head and everything in place. On a pickerel, the bones run very deep. It's hard to pluck them out with a pair of pliers as you might do, say, with salmon or any other sort of round fish. So typically it's easier to cut it out. And you just make a little incision just along the one side of the bones and then again on the underneath. And you just trim gently and remove the bones. Okay. You can trim a little bit off the belly to give it some nice shape so it looks clean. The cleaner the fillet when you fry it, the cleaner the presentation ultimately. Okay. The tail, we're going to trim some of the tail. We are in a restaurant setting. We would certainly use this tail for different preparations and different portioning. Today we're going to focus on the fillet that runs closest to the head because it's just of more even thickness and it's going to cook in a more even way. Okay. So we've got one fillet. We're going to get two today. So again, we'll just trim a little bit off the belly. Give it a nice sort of soft shape. Bellies are totally edible. These are great to put in a light batter and deep fry and put them into tacos and have fish tacos. They're amazing. Okay, again, we're going to check for all these little pin bones and just remove them. Give it a little bit of shape. Reserve the tail for another purpose. And now we have two fillets of pickerel. Can you see them there?
Yeah.
Okay. Next thing we have to do is we want to score the skin side of the fish. So what happens when you take, we're going to leave the skin on this fish, but when you drop a fish with skin on it into hot oil, the fish buckles and it lifts because it reacts to the hot oil. And therefore, when it buckles, you'll be a whole center part of the fish that won't get crispy. So we want to make a few little incisions, scoring the flesh, which is going to help prevent it from buckling and keep it flat in a frying pan.
Do you work with pickerel much at the restaurant, chef?
Yes, we have pickerel on our menu. We have had for the last several years. Yeah, we love pickerel. We also love yellow perch, and another one of our favorites is whitefish out of the Georgian Bay, which are all wonderful, sustainable options and delicious fish. Okay, so turn it back. Once you have the fish scored, a little bit of paper towel, put the skin side down on the paper towel. So the drier the skin, the crispier the skin will become once we cook it. Okay, and this can just sit here at room temperature while we turn on our sauté pan. Okay, this dish, the idea of this dish is really to sort of celebrate summer. So pickerel, obviously, we can catch and harvest all through the summertime. And the other ingredients we're going to use in this are heirloom tomatoes, some peaches, although truth be told, they're not Ontario, but Ontario is coming, and a little bit of corn. So you can imagine that a lot of these things will appear at markets at the same time. Peaches may be on the way out by late August, but it still has a great sense of summer about it. So this dish is really about celebrating summer and Ontario's summer at that. Okay.
This will be perfect for safe outdoor dinner parties.
It will be perfect for that. And hopefully when we're all double vaxxed, just dinner parties in general.
Definitely.
Okay, so come on over to the stove. Quick little tip. If you're going to cook something, the problem with electric stoves is they're either on or they're off. They can't be sort of turned off once they get going. So give yourself 2 burners, put one at full blast, and then give one that's sort of at a medium-low heat. Okay. So we're going to let the pan heat up a little bit, and we're going to make our vinaigrette. So this is a magic bullet, and inside of here, I've combined the honey, some of the rice wine vinegar, and a little touch of salt as well. Okay. The recipe also calls for extra virgin coconut oil. You may find when you buy it, it's totally solid at room temperature. So just give it a second to, in a microwave, like 20 seconds for it to soften. And then it'll become a liquid for you. All right, we're going to pour that in as well. This is a Peruvian pepper paste. So ají amarillo, a yellow pepper paste, popular in Peruvian cuisine. You see this a lot in ceviches and things. The vinaigrette today is called a tiger's milk vinaigrette. And the tiger's milk vinaigrette is a reference to a classic Peruvian ceviche preparation where the fish is just mixed with chilies and lime juice. And it's the juice that's formed from the fish marinating with the chilies and the lime juice that is referred to as tiger's milk. It's like because it takes on a creamy, milky quality as the proteins change in the fish. It's apparently also a great hangover cure. However, we don't often have ceviches the night before a big night out, so at least in my house. So anyway, so that's where the reference is for tiger's milk. For the recipe that I gave you online, I'm making a half recipe. So I'm the half amount of the ají amarillo. Okay. Plus I have lime juice that's going in. Sorry, some in there. And we're just going to buzz this all together in our little magic bullet. We'll be right back. So we got a really great yellow, sort of like the tomato, like beautiful yellow color. The last thing we're going to do is add some grapeseed oil into it. Okay, this is fairly acidic and hot on its own, and the fat's going to cut that a little bit. So you can whisk this by hand if you want, no problem at all. And we like grapeseed oil because it has a very light weight to it, and it's also completely neutral. So this way we can really show off the flavors of the lime juice and the aji amarillo without competing with the flavors. So for example, extra virgin olive oil would not be a great choice here because we appreciate it for its own flavor that it brings to the equation. So we're going to add a little bit of grapeseed oil. And we're going to fuzz it one more time. And what we should see is just a nicely sort of thickened, emulsified sort of sauce. And it's completely smooth and homogeneous. And it has a nice flavor of, it's both sweet, sour, and there's a lingering heat that we really like. Okay, we're going to put the fish into a pan. Okay, so we're going to turn it over. We put a little bit of oil into our saute pan. So whenever you cook fish, you want to build a foundation of heat. So you have to get a pan hot, and then you got to get the oil hot, and then you got to add the fish. And it's that combination that'll help the fish not stick to your pan. We're going to season lightly. Okay, we're just putting some kosher salt over the skin side only. Okay, great. And then we're going to take the fish over to the pan. And we're going to turn our board over at the same time.
Are you able to bring your laptop with you, Chef, just so we can hear you a bit better?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Can you see what's happening in the fish?
Yeah.
So what I'm doing right now is just pushing down the fish. Use a spatula. I want to make sure that fish has a chance to come in contact with all the oil and the fat. All right? And then once it's starting to fry sort of vigorously, and the fish is laying flat in the pan, where we're going to slide it over to that other burner that's just a little bit lower. So now we can control the heat and let the fish just sort of cook. Very gently. Okay, so now while the fish is cooking, we're going to come over and prepare the garnish. So first thing we want to do, we have some peaches, okay? Make a little cut around. Okay, we're just looking for sort of a half-inch dice on the peaches. Just into a bowl.
While you're working on that, Chef, do you mind telling us a little bit more about why you're so passionate about the sustainable seafood movement and kind of how you got involved?
Well, I've been involved with sustainable seafood for a long time. It's as a chef, it's just really important to have products that are caught and researched and appreciated, and know that they just can't ever meet the high demand needs of some huge restaurants. Sustainability is really important to make sure that there is seafood for us to use in the future, to ensure that stocks stay healthy. And, you know, as part of our culinary identity in Canada, as we try to explore that in the future, it's really important that we make sure that the fish that have been important to this country for generations exists and is just a great product. It's a great organization. Oceanwise is also important for us because it's a great networking opportunity. We meet a lot of chefs who have similar minds and similar visions, and it's a great organization in the way that it keeps us abreast of changes in the industry, so that we know when, you know, fish maybe issues have happened, or maybe we need to cut back on the usage of a particular fish, or perhaps there's a fish that we need to explore that we haven't, or maybe there's a fish in a bycatch that is delicious that maybe isn't understood widely by the consumer. So it's just the idea of sustainability is just so very, very important, that we understand that that life is sort of precious and the food is precious, and it's just not there for us to use indefinitely in any way that we want. So Oceanwise helps us to do that. See, there was a question for if you didn't have peaches, what could you use instead? You could use apricots, you could use apples, any sort of stone fruit would be delicious, plums. The idea of this dish is that we get sweetness from the peaches, a little acidity from the tomatoes, some sweetness from the corn. So it's just sweet and some sour flavors. So anything that plays into that would be awesome. Yeah.
While you check the fish, I'll also just kind of highlight what you had said. Chefs really are the educators, especially in the seafood space. Almost 2/3 of people will only eat seafood outside the home. So when they're at restaurants, because seafood isn't like any other protein. It's very confusing. There are over 700 species of even just fish with fins, let alone all the lobsters, crabs, oysters, scallops, octopus. There's so much diversity, which makes it really exciting and a really fantastic area to explore, but it can also be very daunting for the average consumer. So they look to chefs to teach them, how to prepare it, how to enjoy it, but also what to pick and where should it be sourced from. And so that's why I think chefs are leaders in the movement and continue to help us tell our story as an organization as well. So that's why we love working with chefs like you, who are really passionate and looking to connect everyone together for a common good.
Excellent. For those who may have seen, I was just cutting up some of my heirloom tomatoes. So heirloom tomatoes, before the world decided that every tomato needed to be red, there was hundreds of varieties. So we've gone back to these to explore them. All have individual interesting tastes. Some are perhaps more sour, some are sweet, some are less juicy, some have a real textural interest to them. So we've just taken a yellow tomato and one that has like a green sort of zebra stripe, and I've mixed those into our peaches. I cheated a little bit. I added a bit of sugar to the peaches, just because they're not as wonderful as they're going to be in a couple of weeks when the Niagara peaches start to come. So we're just going to cheat a little bit. Peaches and tomatoes are here. We're just going to put a little bit of this tiger's milk vinaigrette, and we'll start this sort of macerating process where they can all pick up the flavor of that. Okay, we'll just toss that through. Okay, let's go over to the stove and check it out. So if I look at my pickerel now, just going slowly, I hope you can see that at the top of the pickerel, it's very pink, and along the edges here, it's very white. So obviously, as the fish is changing, it's changing as it's cooking. So the white would be suggest to me that the fish is cooking, and there's still sort of a medium rarish quality to the top. So we're basically going to cook this pickerel 75% of the way on one side before we turn it. If we look at the pickerel, I'm just going to use my fingers, you can see that it's getting nice and golden brown, and those little slits that we made in the skin here has really helped to keep it flat, and so that the whole skin is getting golden and crisp. This little pan over here, I'm going to use the saute pan that was turned up high. A little bit of butter. Okay. We're going to let this butter go until it's almost brown. And this is a typical chef setup. I don't know if you ever want to do this at home. We have giant bowls of salt, whole containers of butter, and we just throw things in as we need to. You see the butter, it's turning, it's foaming, and it's getting a little bit brown. It may be hard to see, okay? But that's that nuttiness in the butter that we like. So we're going to have the corn in here now, okay? Now we're going to feed it a little bit. You know, you can take on a little bit of color, so that's totally cool. The butter can be made in advance. If you're ever doing a dinner party and you want to cook this pickle dish, where this fish is right now, when I showed it to you, it has a golden skin and it has a slightly underdone exterior. Say your guests are arriving at 7 o'clock, you could fry the fish to this point at 6 p.m. so that when they came and they had cocktails and then they sat down at dinner, that your fish would be 75% of the way there. So all you would have to do is just turn that fish, and then you'd be able to serve it. And you wouldn't have to spend a lot of time in the kitchen, and they would think you're a genius when you brought it out. Okay, butter is getting a little bit of color on it, getting slightly golden brown. Just going to shut off my heat again. This is an electric stove, so there's a lot of residual heat, so it'll continue to cook as it sits. I just don't want it to go any further than this. So finally, I like the way this fish is going, so we're going to turn it over. Okay, you can use a finger or a fork and just turn it lightly like so. Okay. So if you look back at this recording, I mean, a lot of the times in cooking, we do things by touch or by feel. The total cooking time on this is about 5 to 6 minutes. Pickerel is a fish that is, it's not like, say, tuna or salmon that's wonderful when it's a little bit undercooked. Pickerel needs to be cooked through all the way because the texture of the fish is much more enjoyable that way. It has a muscle structure that isn't wonderful raw. So just have it just cooked through so it's juicy and sort of succulent. Okay. So now it would be time to plate. So again, you could do this tomato and peach combination 2 hours in advance. You can have the fish seared off in advance. And I'm just going to remove my board so we can. Oh, here's another trick. I don't know if you like this, but paper towel underneath your board when you're cooking keeps your board from sliding around. It's also a recipe that has been included for pickled jalapenos. So all I've done here is just taken thinly sliced jalapenos. I made a simple pickling liquid of water, vinegar, salt, and sugar. Brought it to the boil, sliced some jalapenos very thinly, and poured the hot pickling liquid over top, and just let it to cool. These are great as a garnish in sandwiches, tacos, anything you like. But they're going to provide us with a little bit of heat and a little bit of a crunchy texture in this dish. So we have our peaches, tomatoes. I'm gonna dump my corn in here now too. Okay. We're gonna put a little mound of our tomatoes and peaches and corn and sauce. And also, for example, this salad is amazing at room temperature. So again, in a dinner party, you could have all these plates set up. They could just be sitting there completely marinated with a sauce around it and the garnish. And then all you have to do is just concentrate on cooking the fish. And once it's done, place it on the plates and bring it out to your guests outside and possibly socially distance as well. Okay.
There's a question, is the corn warm or cool at this point?
The corn is warm at this point. And I would keep it warm so it could be sauteed and left off to the side. Because it's been sauteed in butter, if it gets cool, the butter will congeal And so we want a bit of that melted fat to mix in with the salad as well for a little extra flavor. Okay. We can see a little bit of juice pooling. If I press gently on the pickerel, I can see that it would yield to gentle pressure, it would almost flake apart. So this tells me that this is cooked really, really well. If you have a thermometer at home, you would want to hit around 135 or 140 degrees Fahrenheit. And then that would be sort of a perfect temperature, internal temperature for the fish to cook. So then we'll lay our little fish guy on top. Okay, this is just one portion. Then we can take a little bit more of our peaches, our tomatoes, and our corn. At this point, the dish is fairly monochromatic. So we'll just take some of this. Can you catch that? We're getting a little bit of the juice that has been assembled at the bottom. That should have picked up the flavors of the tomatoes, corn, and peaches, and also some of that extra butter. And we have to make sure that the edges are clean. We're going to take a little bit of this pickled jalapeno. Okay. Okay. This is a little bit of mint from my garden, the only herb I've successfully grown. Okay, I'll just spread that around in a few places. So if you went, there's some local Asian markets I like to go to. You can get wonderful herbs like Thai basil, for example. This would be an awesome addition to this. These are some little radish sprouts. And they just give sort of a lightness to it so that it, a fried fish likes to have garnishes that would suggest that it's still light in flavor. And they provide a pleasing sort of textural component, maybe a little bit crunchy. They don't add a lot of radish flavor to it, but it does give a lightness to the dish and just feels like a fresh sort of summery dish. So this is our pickerel. It's Lake Erie pickerel, pan fried in just a little bit of vegetable oil. And we make a little salad out of our peaches, our heirloom tomatoes, our pickled jalapenos. We've added the corn, the sweet corn that we sauteed in brown butter. And then the most important part being the sauce component, that we added the ají amarillo to it. Okay, this you can find in any Latino grocery store. And often I've seen it at Zayre's as well. So it's really great. The heat is, it's a pleasant heat. It's not an aggressive heat. It has a healthy glow to it. So it doesn't taste very, very sharp, and it doesn't ruin the flavors of the dish.
Very nicely done, Chef. It looks fantastic.
That's our pickerel.
And if anyone at home is wondering, all the aspects of this dish, including the vinaigrette and the jalapenos, are included on the recipe card that was sent around, and you'll have access to as well. I don't know if we'll all be able to get mint from Chef Aaron's garden, but we should ask.
You would have to do it quickly because it's probably not going to survive.
All right. Well, thank you again, Chef. That was a great demo. Lots of awesome tips there. It looks like Mark's ready to move us into the next portion of this event.
No, Mark's ready to eat that dish right now because it looks bloody delicious. Hey, Chef Aaron, I have a question for you. That ají amarillo, is there, just in case I don't live near a market, I can pick that up. Is there something that might be more available in the mainstream that might be a good replacement for that substitute?
To sort of mimic the color and the flavor, what you could do is take a sweet yellow pepper and a little jalapeno, and you could roast the yellow pepper till it was very soft, and then puree it with a little bit of chili, a little jalapeno or a pinch of chili flake. then you get all the yellow, you get the yellow sort of texture and the color of it, and a little bit of the heat.
That's awesome. Thank you. Jessica, sorry, Erika, do you think, are there any other questions that we wanted to get to? If anyone has questions for the chef about the recipe or anything of the sort about Oceanwise, please, now's your chance to get in there. We do have a few minutes left. We'll give you a second to drool over that recipe. So I do have pickerel in my freezer. The last time we did a cooking demo, I actually was able to cook along with it, but because I'm doing my duties today, I wasn't able to. I'm excited to try this recipe after.
Yeah, I think it's quite simple, and it's a good dinner party dish because I think you can do so much in advance and ahead of time. So,
you know, it's interesting when I was helping Jessica with the recipe, like just sort of getting the recipe onto the recipe card. I'm like, this does not seem simple, but when you actually demo it, it's actually really simple. It's an easy dish to pull together, and lots of ways you can sort of make it your own. You know, adding things to the adding recipe ingredients to the salad and that kind of thing, right?
And the salad itself is great on its own. If God forbid you weren't interested in an Oceanwise product, but you just wanted to have the salad.
That's right. For the person who asked where the recipe card is, it was emailed to the registrants of the workshop. Oh, sorry, I apologize. It will, yes, it was. And it will be, we'll send it out again, and we'll send it when we send the recording, the link to the recording tomorrow.
There was one question just about if you can't find pickerel, is there another sustainable fish you would substitute? So Lake Huron whitefish would be wonderful. Yellow perch would be great. When you go to your fishmongers, try to look for the Oceanwise symbol and just start conversations with the fishmongers and find out, you know, chances are good they're very invested in their own products and very aware of their own products. And there certainly are vendors within the city that really make it a mission to find great sustainable seafood. So the flavors of this salad lend itself to any seafood, honestly, from shellfish to a whitefish. There could be some great salmon. There's some great farm salmon that comes out of the West Coast. Would be amazing for this. Yeah, any fish really lends itself.
Excellent.
Yeah, it really does make a difference if you ask, you know, is this Oceanwise? Where is this from? How is it harvested? Because it demonstrates that you, as a consumer, you care where your food is coming from as well, and it kind of puts that pressure on the retailers and the suppliers to make those thoughtful sourcing decisions and to access groups like Oceanwise, MSC, ASC to learn more about where their sourcing comes from. So I love that suggestion. And I love how you pulled together so many different local, you know, the seafood, but also the rest of the products for this dish. Some other fantastic Ontario products would be farmed rainbow trout. We've got a huge industry for rainbow trout here, and there's some cool opportunities with RAS, so land-based farms in Ontario. You can farm actually Arctic char, rainbow trout, tilapia, striped bass, all of that on land in tanks. So there's actually, you know, no concerns about what's happening and how it interacts with the ocean environment because it's on land. So lots of very cool seafood options, and Chef Aaron gave you the perfect dish to try them out with.
There's a question about the type of pan, Teflon coated versus stainless steel. Teflon's really easy to work with for the non-stick quality to it. Stainless steel is what I would use at work, or cast iron, for example. If you're going to use the stainless steel, it's just really important, as I mentioned, to build that foundation of heat. So the pan has to get hot first, give it a few seconds to preheat. Then you're going to add the oil, give it a few seconds for the oil to get hot. Because you have to imagine when the fish is put into the pan, it pushes the oil to the sides. And if the pan is cool or the oil is not hot enough, that's when the fish sticks. So get that foundation of heat, and then theoretically you can use any pan you like. And
you're not just getting a cooking demo, you're getting a science demo as well. Thank you.
If it does stick, don't be tempted to leave it, and don't be tempted to try to scrape it off the pan immediately. Just let it sit for a bit, let it form a crust, let the skin get kind of crispy, and less prone to tearing, which will take about 2 minutes of frying. And then you can slowly start to pry it away from the pan. And then if you bring it in, if it still sticks and the skin gets left behind in the pan, pull the skin off all the other fish at your dinner party and just to never admit that it happened.
This is how my fillets came. No skin. I would like to mention as well that you mentioned Hooked as one of the fishmongers that you like to go to that actually does have ocean-wide seafood products. LiveGreen Toronto has a program called Toronto's Greenest Choice, which recognizes some of the green places, spaces, and things that make Toronto a great green city. Hooked has actually been the winner of our Toronto's Greenest Choice, and it's a poll, so it's been voted by residents of Toronto. It's been the winner of Toronto's Greenest Choice as our favorite fishmonger, sustainable fishmonger, for the last 2 years running. So check out Hooked. They have a couple of locations, but if you'd like, you can also look to the LiveGreen Perks program, which is our green business directory that gives you links to many other sources of sustainable goods and products in the city, including lots of restaurants and markets and butchers, fishmongers, that kind of thing. If we have no other questions, I think we're good. Erika, I didn't actually want to, well, you mentioned MSC, and I wanted to, I know this came up the last time we had a workshop, wanted to ask you to just sort of touch on, because I know I see MSC in my local grocery store quite a lot, like almost all of their seafood products are MSC. So maybe you could just mention what that is and what are the other programs that people might encounter in their day-to-day lives that can help them make wise decisions.
Yeah, it's a great question, and for anyone who's really interested in digging into the nitty-gritty of it, you can check out our standards page on the OceanWise website, which I can include a link to later. But the OceanWise Seafood Program, we're a recommendation program. We're actually not a certification body, and MSC is a certification, and so is ASC, so is BAP. And what this allows us to do is to pull data from a lot of different sources and then benchmark to our sustainability standard, which is actually the highest sustainability standard in this eco-labeling space. So when you see the OceanWise logo, you know you're getting the most sustainable product. We use the sustainability criteria developed by the Monterey Bay Seafood Watch program. MSC has its own standards for sustainable fishing and seafood traceability, and then authorized third-party certifying bodies will assess the fisheries and the gear against that standard, and then we'll certify based on that. So we recommend a lot, not all MSC certified fisheries. But if you, and a simple way to think about it is OceanWise Seafood is like an umbrella in our recommendations, and certifications and assessments fit underneath to broaden the number of seafood sources that we can actually provide recommendations about. So we have almost 3,000 recommendations and continues to grow as new science is done, new assessments are performed, and we're always updating our recommendations based on the best available knowledge.
Excellent, thank you. Okay, so I think we are safe to wrap. I want to just to say a huge thank you to Erika and to Chef Aaron for doing such a great job today and helping us not just make something that's super yummy. I'm so hungry right now, but also provide us with all this great information. We at LiveGreen Toronto, we believe that it's critical that we rethink our relationship with food. As such, there's quite a significant section of our website that has a lot of information about your relationship with food and how you can make better decisions, not just for yourself from a health perspective, but also for the planet itself. So please take some time. I encourage you to take some time to check out our website and learn a bit more about that. The website is livegreentoronto.ca. We are, as I mentioned at the top of the call, part of the City of Toronto, your local government. I would like to thank our co-hosts tonight, our staff who helped us make this whole thing happen today, Jessica and Adam, who are on the screen, but videos are not on at this time. Would like to thank you for tuning out and for joining us today. We hope that you found this a really great event, and we hope that you will join us for our future events. We've got them lined up all summer. If you, just a reminder that we will be sending the link to this workshop tomorrow, and it will be available on our YouTube channel as well. So there you go. If you cooked along with us, go ahead, enjoy, have a really delicious night ahead of you. Maybe pour yourself a glass of Ontario wine to go along with that, and we will see you at our next LiveGreen at Home workshop. Thank you so much. Have a great evening, everybody. Thank you, Erika. Thank you, Chef Aaron.
Thank you.